Sounds great. We are live on YouTube. And I will now just start the sounds great. We are live on YouTube.
It's like a little double audio. I'm gonna mute myself.
Can you hear me right now or not? Guys, if you can just tell me if you can hear me right now.
Yep, all good.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Because I had to mute myself on YouTube, but now it works. All right, I'm just gonna start the live session right now. And we can kick it off. Hi everyone, we are live and we are very happy to have you with us here today. As usually, we will just wait 1 or 2 more minutes for everyone to come and join. And in the meantime, let me just give you a short intro for the section. So today, the biggest value that you can get from the session is really by joining live. And I'm really happy to see you here. And if you've joined any of our previous sessions, you will see that this one will be quite different. We really wanted to have a session that will be more organic, and it will be a live Ask Me Anything. And that's why, first of all, we have invited Christian, who is our guest today. And I suppose he's the main reason why you are all here today as well. And he will be taking also questions throughout the session, as well as at the end of the session. So I really encourage you to use the Zoom chat and to be sending in the questions as they will be popping into your mind. And as already mentioned, this will be a live conversation. And we will be, of course, targeting cold calling. That's the main topic of today's. And we'll be going through what needs to happen before you dial, how to handle the calls themselves, and what processes and tools you need to have in place after your call is over. So regarding the follow-up. Right now, before we jump into the content itself, I'd just like to give a short introduction to our team from CloudTalk that is with us today. First of all, I'm Anna. I'm a product marketing manager here in CloudTalk, and I'll be your host today. Second of all, we have Janci here with us. He is our senior pre-sales consultant, and he's one of the most knowledgeable people in CloudTalk that I know. Janci, do you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody. Yes, thank you for a nice introduction. You are overestimating my abilities a bit, I think, but thank you.
I don't think so. Also, our clients would agree, I think. And we also have Omar with us here today, but I'm just not sure if he's already here or he'll be joining in a few minutes.
He's here.
All right. And Omar, also, do you want to say hi? So Omar is here with us today because he has done a great deal of cold calling himself before joining CloudTalk. And he will be helping us also with his experience and also managing your questions.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Omar. Pleasure to see you all and meet you all. And yeah, thank you for the introduction, Anna.
No problem. So we have a whole crowd here today. But of course, we have Christian. He is the main guest today. And Christian, as I was preparing this slide today morning, I actually couldn't give you a title because I felt any title I put under your name felt quite restricting when it comes to your results and records. So you come from Salesforce, where you generated millions in pipeline. And since then, you have helped hundreds of teams and also individual sales professionals in their career. Would you mind introducing yourself briefly and also giving us a little bit about your background?
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Anna, for the invitation and the whole CloudTalk team for having me today. Look, I'm one of you guys, right? So I'm a sales rep, a sales professional. Yes, I was with Salesforce for 5 years, where I did sort of the whole journey from junior SDR all the way to senior account executive. And I think one thing that I did, obviously, is that I started posting on LinkedIn, which opened up so many opportunities for me. I was social selling champion internally at Salesforce. So I enabled our wider sales organization in LinkedIn and social selling. But what a lot of people don't know is that I actually made my first 10,000 cold calls before I ever posted on LinkedIn. Hence why I think I was chosen to be the guest today. So
Yes, that is why. And we are really excited to have you here and learn from your experience and from your knowledge. Just before we kick it off with the content, I want to highlight two housekeeping notes. So first of all, everyone will receive a recording after this session. And second of all, as was already mentioned, feel free to use the Zoom chat and send the questions as we go throughout the session. There will be space both during the session and also at the end. All right. And now actually, let's start at the beginning. However, when it comes to cold calling, the beginning is much sooner than before you start dialing, right? And Christian, I've heard you say something quite strong a few times, and that is actually that most cold calls fail before you dial. So I wanted to ask you, what is the biggest mistake you see in cold calling preparation, and how exactly do you mean this statement?
yeah, so I think one of the fundamental principles that I believe in and that I always believed in as a sales reps is that you want to separate the preparation from the execution. And one of the things that I've seen in my days is when sales reps make cold calls is that they don't do enough research, in my opinion. So they have a long list of phone numbers that they want to call and they kind of play the numbers game, the spray and pray. They have their opener or their script, and then they just hammer through these phone numbers. And I find that's probably not the most optimal approach. I believe that for every single prospect that you have on your call list, you should have done a little bit of research. So, one, obviously, on the account, on the company. So, you should have some relevant data points that, will help you deliver a problem statement or a hypothesis of a business challenge that you can help solve. But I also think you should find something that's personal about the prospect, right? So that could be a commonality that you have with them, right? Like a joint experience, whether that's career related or life related. And the best way to find that is just scan their LinkedIn profile for 1 to 2 minutes to find that. Um, Obviously, I think when you do prospecting, I think you should always be persona specific. So I also find that you should understand like what are really the KPIs that your prospects are measured against. So if you sell to HR leaders, what are the key performance indicators that HR leaders care about? Because that really speaks to the business impact as well. So I think, long story short, um, do your homework, right? Spend some time researching the companies and researching the prospects that you're calling, and I think you will have much better outcomes from your cold calling sessions.
I think many people, including Omar, will agree with that here. And it makes a good transition for my next question, because of course, the biggest pressure as a salesperson you have is to really hit your numbers, right? So whether that's a target of, I don't know, 50, 100 calls, and sometimes that makes you sacrifice the quality of your calling list. So I wanted to ask you, could you walk us through your ideal prospect building process? And how do you know that your list is call ready?
Yeah, very good. Let's get tactical. So I think the first thing that you should do is you choose the accounts that you want to go after. And I think you said a very important point, quality over quantity. I'm a big believer in the Pareto principle, right? 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your effort. I also believe that 80% of your pipeline and revenue will come from 20% of your accounts. So I think it's always better to go after 20 high quality accounts rather than 100 mediocre ones. So choose wisely which accounts you go after and then research those accounts. And then I'm obviously big into LinkedIn and social selling. So I'm a very heavy Sales Navigator user. So I might make sure that for each of my 20 accounts, I find at least three to maybe five ideal buyer personas. So I want to make sure that I speak to the right people, not just the random ones. And there's obviously different people that we can speak to. There's people above the power line, right? So there's C-level and vice presidents who have decision-making power. And then there's people below the line, which is typically your staff level, middle management level. There's obviously value to speaking to all of these people, right? Typically, below the line is an easier entry point, helps us have a couple conversations, gain some research insights that maybe we cannot find online before we then go to the C level, where we have to make sure that we really did our homework and then that we have a very solid problem statement and value proposition that's based on research.
And you already mentioned that you are quite big on LinkedIn. And I think majority of people already know you from LinkedIn. And I just think that many people would argue or would resist while doing like LinkedIn warm-up. But you are quite big on that. And can you talk about why actually it's not really slowing you down?
Yes, this is a bit of so this is a super fair point, and this is a conversation and a discussion that I have a lot. Whenever I speak to a new company about LinkedIn social selling, there's this resistance because they think, oh, now I have to do LinkedIn in addition to everything else that I'm doing. Or sometimes they think, oh no, Christian wants me to replace my current cold calling and cold email with LinkedIn. And neither of the two approaches is really the point. So to me, LinkedIn is a top of funnel layer that sits on top of your normal outbound motion. Why? Because LinkedIn builds trust at scale. If you think about it, if you have an optimized LinkedIn profile and you post something organic once a week and you track your profile views and you send a couple DMs, ideally video DMs to prospects on a daily basis, you can warm up a lot of ideal buyers at the same time. And that's something that's not possible with cold calling. Cold calling is always a one-to-one approach, right? That is very effective and really cuts through the noise. But with LinkedIn, you can build trust at scale with a lot of people at the same time. And what I find is, so I still do cold calls today, typically on Fridays, but we're going to talk about that. Today, I have a wildly different experience when I make phone calls compared to 3 years ago when I was at Salesforce. 3 years ago, you get the typical objection handling, like, how did you get my number? Who are you? They hear Salesforce and they're like, oh no, we're not interested in Salesforce. We have HubSpot. So they immediately disqualify. Now when I call, they're like, Christian, oh my God, I love your posts. So it's a very, very different experience. And it feels like people already know me. There's already some trust. So I can be very relaxed on the phone and have a real business conversation.
How many years would you say that it took you to build this trust, or how long did this change take from to change your cold calling experience to what you mentioned until today?
So it's hard to put like an exact time projection on it. I've been building my LinkedIn brand for 6 years. So when I tell people, yeah, you have to do this for 6 years, they're like, I don't have that much time. So in the Quota League in our coaching program, it's 8 weeks. And we see that already within 4 weeks, our members see significant improvement in the response rates that they have on LinkedIn, in the amount of profile views that they get. So what's important is that you show up with organic value once a week. and that you don't do the classic, pitch slapping kind of thing or sending templated emails on LinkedIn. If you do that, then the buyers will very quickly put you in the same category as everybody else. But if you have this like thought leadership approach, um, it can make a really big difference already within like 4 to 8 weeks. Yeah.
That sounds more manageable than 6 years. And I see, Omar, would you like to jump in either with a question or with your own experience?
Yeah, no, I was gonna more to your point, Chris, is I've noticed as well that it doesn't take a lot of time to actually kind of like build it up. It's usually just as simple as go on, find everyone you went to maybe university with, people you know from the past, connect with them. Everyone wants more connections on LinkedIn, so there's no shortage of people that are going to accept. And then that in itself helps build your brand on LinkedIn and boost also the trust factor that Chris is referring to. And I think that was something as well that I 100% agree with, and something that I started when I initially knew that I had to cold call these businesses, because like you said, Chris, it's a necessary thing to rather than quality, and you get more to the bare bone of those, warming them up through LinkedIn for sure. So yeah, completely agree with that.
Maybe one more point on that. For those who are skeptical about LinkedIn and social selling, you just have to look at the data. So by data, I mean what are typical cold email open and reply rates, and what are typical cold calling, pickup rates. And we just see that the data is going down year over year. So what that means is that if we want to achieve the same results as last year, we have to work harder. We have to do more. And that's not sustainable because at some point we will hit, our capacity limit. So I'm all about making sure that we correct our open and response rates or reply rates in general so that we can, also have a life outside of work, but like actually hit our targets and hit our quota within, our 40-hour week. So I think LinkedIn can help you with that. And look, phone calling is still super, super important.
It is, and that's why we are having this session, right? Let's stay with the topic of research just for a little bit more, because I think it can feel quite overwhelming for more people. And some people can either like over research and then dial much less, or they can under research and then they sound generic, right? So could you talk a bit about like where's the balance, and also how much research time is enough, and what is your research process?
Yeah. So let's get really specific. So I'm a big fan of the 5 by 5 rule. So that means you choose 5 accounts and 5 prospects inside of each account. So that's a total of 25 prospects per week. I think that is a realistic amount of prospects to actually target for, an SDR, BDR, senior account executive. Obviously, you do that every week. So over the course of a month, it becomes 100 people. And keep in mind that you also have to do follow-ups with those same people. So I think 25 is ambitious, but realistic for most people. And so what I typically do is on Monday mornings, right? That's the time for me when I prepare for my week. I'll block myself anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes, and I will do research on these 5 accounts. So that means I check out their website, I check out their LinkedIn page, Sales Navigator, I look at all of the insights. I will look for, an annual investor report, or maybe there's an earnings call that I can actually listen to. Now, I always try to use ChatGPT or Claude to speed up that process because we can save a lot of time these days now using AI. But I really try to build a POV, a point of view on the account. So point of view is actually an opinion that I have based on my research. So based on my research, I believe that these can be potential challenges that you have, and this is how we can potentially help you solve this challenge. That's what a POV is. And then I look at these 5 prospects in each account. I make sure that I send them a LinkedIn connection request. I make sure that they follow them on LinkedIn. And I hit the notifications, so the double bell on their profile to see that anytime they post. And then I start my outreach sequence that way. So with those 90 minutes, 5 accounts, 5 prospects, if you can block that on Mondays once a week, I think you're in pretty good shape.
That sounds reasonable. And I'd like to ask at this point, Omar, is there any question that we should be taking right now, or can we continue?
Yeah, I mean, there is a question that I think is a good one is, what has been the most efficient way to get to the next step, scheduling a call? Luke's asking this, and I think it's a pretty good thing. I think he's referring to the follow-up call. Once you, let's say, complete a cold call, how do you get to the follow-up, Chris?
Let me know, Chris, if you want to take this one now, or if we keep it for the follow-up section.
Well, I can maybe briefly comment. So I think the best strategy is always multi-channel. And I think I always try to put my most effective outreach moves or tools at the beginning, right? I'm not trying to do 30 touches to book a meeting. Ideally, I book my meeting at the first touch, which is why I like to do video prospecting on LinkedIn because I see really strong reply rates there. But if my video, like if they don't connect with me or they don't see my video or they don't respond to it, that's when I do the call. And if they don't pick up, I always make sure I leave a voice message. And then I send an email, right? So what I'm saying is I structure my follow-up so that I go from strongest to weakest in terms of my reply rates. But we can also take this one again in the follow-ups.
All right. And then I think there's one last topic that I'd like to ask you about before we jump into the call itself. And that is the timing, right? Because it can make all of the difference. Because you're dialing, there is either no answer or you hit voicemails, and that can be very frustrating. So when do you think, or when do you advise people to make calls?
Yeah, very good. So what's unique about cold calling is the timing, right? All the other prospecting methods, so in mails or emails or even LinkedIn video messages, they're different because the prospects can respond whenever they want. A phone call only happens when the other person picks up the moment that you call, right? So that's what's unique about cold calling. That's why the timing is important. And I think you should be making calls when your prospects are not in meetings. So when are they typically in meetings? They're typically in meetings from 9 to 5, from Monday through Thursday, typically, right? And then Fridays, most people have less meetings. So I do think if you want to have the best results, you should be doing your cold calls before 9 a.m. local time zone or after 5 p.m., right? So obviously don't call them at 5 a.m. or 10 p.m., right? They have a private life, so respect that. But I think there's like an hour time window in which it is acceptable to call someone because they're on their commute, or if they're working from home, they're not fully yet in the meetings and they have sort of like their downtime. And same after work, right? It's like they're wrapping up, they're done with their meetings, they're doing a couple emails before they go home, or before they pick up their kids. And then on Fridays, most people have significantly fewer meetings on Fridays, especially Friday afternoons. So that's why, so it obviously also depends what your role is. Are you full-time prospecting as a BDR, or are you like me, a small business owner, and there's a lot of things that you have to do, but you're still trying to make your phone calls? I only call on Fridays, for 2 hours from 2 to 4 p.m. in my time zone. And I find that I have the best connect rates because most of my prospects are not in meetings and they're actually getting ready, wrapping up the week before they go into the weekend. And another nice side effect that they have that it has is that they're in a better mood. They're like, I'm going into the weekend, they're looking forward to it. And when you call them and you suggest a meeting for the following week, early for the following week, like a lot of times they will accept that and you get that meeting in the calendar. So what I would avoid is calling on Monday mornings because most people are grumpy.
And I can confirm that I am very grumpy every Monday morning. I do see a few raised hands, and I finally figured out how to allow our participants to speak. Omar, do you want to jump in first? Because I see you also raised the hand, and then maybe we can ask one live question from the audience.
Yeah, sure. It's actually kind of on the timing thing that Chris was mentioning. I know he says Fridays, and actually on this one, Chris, I did it a bit differently. I want to see what you think about it, but for me, it was actually Tuesdays and Wednesdays where I was getting the best connect rates. The reason why Friday for me wasn't well, again, B2B, was mainly because I found that Fridays they can be a bit mentally checked out. Mondays, I completely agree. It's like they have like catch up chaos, like they have emails, meetings, planning to get done. And Fridays, I found that they are a little bit mentally checked out. So usually my best results have come Tuesday, Wednesday. I find that that's like their peak focus and like they now are in the groove of the week, have stable schedules. And actually, I agree with the before 9 and some like an hour past 5, but I've also done when I have to do it during the day. Usually 10 a.m. to 11:30 has worked for me, and then 4 p.m. to 5:30. And the reason I think this works is because on the earlier end, the 10 a.m. to 11:30, they've like cleared urgent morning emails, calls that they have to do. They're not in lunch mode yet, but like they're getting there, and energy and focus is a bit high. And then for 4 to 5 p.m., I found that gatekeepers are usually psychologically less strict later in the day, and decision makers also are wrapping up and more likely at their desks. So for me, that's what I found. I'm wondering, I'm curious what you think about that, Chris.
What I think about that is there's not one answer, one truth that's going to be true for everyone. You have to test what works best for you because there's differences across industries, there's differences across geographies, right? So I don't know, first example that comes to mind is the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, at 5:30, everyone is dropping the pen and going home like on the minute. Like nobody stays a minute longer than 5:30. That's just the work culture there. But you might be calling to a different country where it's completely normal that people work longer, right? In Spain, people tend to start their day later, and they eat lunch from 3 to 4 p.m. and then they work until 7, 8. It's like completely different. So you have to test at what time do you have the best pickup rates, and then you should be double down on that timing. What I was sharing is just what worked personally for me. So that's completely cool, and I think you did the right thing, Omar, by reflecting on like when am I actually getting the best results.
All right, Chris, and if it's fine, I'll now take one question from Sebastian Robert, and we'll take it live. Sebastian, are you able to join us and ask your question live?
I see him among us. I think he needs to unmute himself.
Yep.
And then it should be fine.
Let's wait maybe 15 more seconds, and then there are more people raising their hands right now. Okay, I'll try to give a chance to another participant right now. And it's Noah. You should be able to unmute yourself right now.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just had like just one question about what if a prospect says I don't want more customers? Um, so how do you guys like handle that objection?
Oh my goodness. Where did that come from? I was not prepared. Look, I think so. We're gonna talk about objection handling. That one's interesting, right? I think what we've all heard before when it comes to objection handling is like you want to peel the onion, right? So you want to understand where does the objection come from. So you should be asking them like, wow, that's the first time someone's telling me they don't want more customers. Why is that? Are you like hitting your capacity limit, right? And then they'll tell you, like, yeah, we have too many customers, we don't have enough staff. Like, okay, have you thought about like maybe hiring more people or so this is with every objection. Every objection is an opportunity for discovery, right? So for every objection, you should be asking a follow-up question just to understand more. And this is not being salesy or pushy. This is just to try to genuinely understand because it sounds like this customer has an issue. By the way, everybody wants to make more money. I think we can agree, right? So if when somebody tells you, I don't want more customers, they must believe that more customers is not going to bring them more money. And that sounds like an operational issue that they have in their business, right? But I'm obviously making assumptions. So question back on you, like, what is a follow-up question that you can ask them to understand better?
Sorry for putting you on the spot, Christian. But I
That's
will.
all right.
Thank you for answering that. All right, let's move on because I see where we are with time. So right now we're in a situation where we've done our prep. We have our call block, and I wanted to ask you if you could walk us through your call framework.
Yeah, so I think everybody should have a script. When I say script, that's not something that you read off of a screen. When I say script, that's a framework that you follow. And so the script actually works the same way as a cold email works. It's the same way as a script works for a video DM. It has four components. You have an opener, you have a problem statement, you have a value proposition, and you have a call to action. So the opener, there's different schools of thought out there in sales. There is a group of people that is a big fan of permission-based openers, where you essentially ask the prospect, like, hi, this is Christian from the Quota League. This is a cold call. Do you have 25 seconds for me to explain you why I called? So for some people that works well. It personally never felt right to me because I felt that I'm putting myself in a needy position, for lack of a better term. So I always like to start my call with a research insight, right? So I would much prefer saying like, hi, this is Christian with the Quota League. Omar, I saw that you've hired, 5 SDRs last month. And I was just thinking like perhaps there's a way to shorten their onboarding and ramp time. Do you have a minute? And I'm happy to share more information, right? So I like to add already an insight which differentiates me. Like I've show me you know me. I'm showing them I've already done my homework. So that typically works better for me. Now, when it comes to your problem statement, this is basically the breaking point. So you've just earned 15 seconds more, right? If they say yes. So it's really important that you deliver a problem, a business challenge that they actually face, and ideally very persona specific. And I always say to people, like, you want to describe it in triggering detail. So triggering detail means you cannot just be too generic, right? So I cannot say, Omar, typically when I speak to sales leaders, they tell me that, their SDRs, they run for 12 months and they lose revenue. How have you ever come across that? And they'll say, yeah, the story of my life. So it's not specific enough. So you want to describe it so they really see themselves in that situation. So it would be something like, hey, Omar, I've worked with this company last year. They had 6 SDRs, and the ramp time of those SDRs was 12 months, meaning it actually cost them, 3 million in potential pipeline until those reps hit their quota. And as a result, it put a lot of pressure on the VP of sales because they now had to find a new pipeline channel to make up, for that lost revenue. So it has to do a little bit with storytelling. It has to do with the persona specific KPIs, but you want the prospect like to feel the situation, right? That's what I mean in triggering detail. And that's something that we need to practice, right? I'm trying to make up something on the spot here. But you can do much better than me. Now, obviously, point number 3, the value proposition is key, right? You have to be really good at delivering the value of your solution. What most people do wrong here is they speak too much about the features, right? So, we're going to talk about some things CloudTalk here, but you basically don't want to bore your prospects with the features and the benefits. You want to speak about the outcomes, right? Because nobody buys software, everybody buys results. So what is the result of working with you? And you should say, look, so I'll take my own business as an example. Look, we've put 20 people through our 8-week LinkedIn and social selling training in the quota league, and already after 4 weeks, our clients are seeing a 100% increase in their impressions and profile views, and they get about a 50%, response rate on their video DMs or something like this. So numbers are very helpful if you have them, right? But what is the end result? Less cost, more revenue, less risk is typically the classic. So you should be able to put it in one of those categories. And then lastly, you want to have a call to action. So I think we're all on the same boat. We're making phone calls to book meetings, right? So you want to get to the meeting. So you want to have a strong meeting close. And you should pitch the value of that meeting, right? Why should this prospect give you 30 minutes of their time? Well, it's something like, look, would love to walk you through what that looks like exactly so that you can make an informed decision, right? Because a lot of times prospects, they don't give us their time in the first place, especially when it's outbound, when it's cold. They don't give us their time necessarily to buy, but to learn, right? So if they have the feeling that spending 30 minutes with you, whether that's, whether you show them a demo or you do some discovery, if they have the feeling that they're going to learn something from that call, even if they don't agree to further steps with you, that's typically the way to close for the meeting.
And before I give space for more questions, I would still like to ask you about the part of calling that probably is not favorite for many people, and those are objections, right? Because this is either where you build your confidence or you completely lose it. So could you, or can you tell me like your top 5 objections that you hear, and like how do you handle them?
Yeah. So they're actually not my top 5. They're everybody's top 5, at least based on the data. So number 1 is I'm not interested. So when somebody says I'm not interested, it's not an objection. They're just trying to get rid of you, right? And whenever that happens, I think you should just react with humor. It's like, oh yeah, of course, if you were interested, you probably would have called me in the first place. But would you mind me asking, is it that you already have a solution in place, or is it just no budget right now? So what I'm doing here is I react relaxed with humor, and then I use the multiple choice technique. So the multiple choice technique is making an assumption what the real objection is. Is it that you already have a solution in place, or is it that there's just no budget right now? And then they'll tell you, yeah, it's actually that we already have a solution in place. So then you have your second objection, and then you start from there. So the second one, most common one, is when people tell you, we already have a vendor. And also here, like, be relaxed. You could say like, yeah, of course you already have a vendor. I mean, I wouldn't know what you would be doing if you didn't have. I was selling CRM back in the day, everybody had a CRM. If not, that would be a shocker, right? So yeah, of course you already have a CRM. Would you mind me asking, like, what do you love about them? Like, what are they doing really, really well? So I always like to ask prospects what they love about a tool, because then they see, okay, I'm not trying to go against the competitor. That's one of the worst things that you can do. If you try to go against competitor, then there's conflict. So like, what do you love about that? And then they tell you a little bit what they like. And you could also ask like, from 1 to 10, like how happy are you with them? And they'll probably tell you, yeah, it's maybe a 7. And you could ask, okay, what's missing for you to get to a 10? And then they start saying, well, yeah, it would be nice if the dashboards were a little bit better, or it would be nice if this thing would be a little bit better, right? So chances are they're sharing something that you can pick up on, well, then you can slide in and be like, look, not a hard sell here, but actually with our solution, you could be doing XYZ. Would it be worth spending 15 minutes on that just to learn more? right? Or just so that you know what your options are when the next renewal cycle comes up, right? That's another thing with software. It's always about the renewal cycles. The third objection is call me in 6 months, right? So you could be saying, look, Omar, I would love to call you again in 6 months. Would you mind sharing like what changes for you in 6 months for that to be the right timing to call you? I want to make sure that I'm well prepared next time when I reach out, right? So you put it back on them, right? What's actually changing in 6 months? Does that actually make sense to postpone the conversation out that far? Number four is no budget. Nobody ever has budget, right? That's sort of the rule of sales. And so I think it's like trying to get them away, thinking about budget, but actually getting them to think about the cost of an action, right? So whatever problem there is that you might identify, like what is that costing them? Again, in lost revenue or revenue that they're missing out, additional costs that they might have, or risk that needs to be managed or mitigated. So if they say, look, we don't have budget, I'm like, totally get it. I'm sure, typically there's buyer cycles that you have. But again, you can do the thing where you can say, look, would it be worth 15 minutes to look at this thing just so that next time you have budget, you know what your options are, right? So more again, coming from like an educational point of view, like trying to share value with them rather than a hard sell. And then lastly, when they say, how'd you get my number? Just tell them. Just be like, hey, I use CloudTalk and they actually have the best contact data out there and it's fully GDPR compliant. So yeah, if you have a sales team, I highly recommend that you use it. Just be honest.
I was smiling the whole way throughout when you were explaining how you handle those objections with humor. So thank you for that. Would you be open to taking one live question?
Absolutely. That's a good sales question too. Would you be open to?
All right. In that case, I will give words to Joanna and let me know if you can unmute yourself and speak.
Hi. Hello, good afternoon. I hope I'm unmuted.
Yes, you will.
Okay, great. So I was wondering, when handling objections on the phone, how do you smoothly go from whatever sales pitch you have onto a hard sell when you know that your product is better at some points and they hit you with, for example, oh, I'm with this big provider right now, and you know that you might be smaller in size, but you can bring more value into that's the whole point of sales, right? Right? You know your product, you know it's something good. You have mapped out the needs of the person that you're calling, and you're on the objection stage where you see the other person that's not completely objecting, open a bit to a conversation. So how do you go from the smooth talking, okay, let's see what you have, what do I have, to a hard sell, like, oh, okay, so you have this, but I have that. Is there a way to smooth out the process?
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant question because I think this is what most people deal with. So I think number one, it sounds like you have that, is you need to believe in what you sell, right? If you're working for a company and you're not really believing in the product, that's already an issue. You should probably look elsewhere, right? So the first thing you need to have is like a strong belief in the product that you sell and the value. It sounds like you have that, right? The next thing is sort of like I said, is always, always, always avoid going against the competitor because it's a fight that you cannot win, right? The competitor already won their business. So trying to go against the competitor will never do you favors. You should always go with the competitor saying like, what do you like about the tool? Like, how are you using that today? Like get them up. And that's how you open up the prospect. And that's how they notice, oh, this person is actually more like a trusted advisor. They're more like a consultant. They're not a salesperson telling me that what I have is bad and what they have is better. It's like they're actually trying to genuinely understand my business, right? And then you truly, truly advise them and whenever you see the gaps, you just let them know and be like, just as an FYI, it sounds like, things are going great for you over here. Potentially here, there's area for improvement. So just so you know, this is how we usually deal with XYZ, or this is how we've worked with a client. If you have case studies where clients have switched competitors, also make sure that you mention that. It gives you more credibility. And again, I mean, I might be repeating myself, but I always put it back on this thing where like I try to be educational. I try to, be the trusted advisor and be like, look, would it be a bad idea, to just give you a look, like a 15, 20 minute look of how our tool works, so that whenever the time comes for you to make a decision or to reconsider, that you're, as well informed as possible. That would be my approach.
You wanna let us know if this answered your question?
Yeah, it did. We have a very similar approach, so thank you so much for that.
And thank you for asking. All right. And there is one last question for Christian that I have right now when it comes to the call itself. And it has more to do with actually your process. Because I want to ask about the caller ID trust and local numbers. Because I think what many people can be experiencing is also low pickup rates. So Christian, can you share with us why do local numbers matter actually when you do cold calling?
Yeah. So sales is all about trust, right? And trust is something that's quickly eroding in the world, right? Because we have AI, so we don't know what's real and what's fake anymore. So this is something that you need to keep in mind is if you call somebody in a different country and they see that you have a phone number that's not a local number, most people will assume this is spam. Most people will assume that you're sitting in a sweatshop or in a boiler room in, in a third world country somewhere in the world. I'm not going to call them out because that would not be politically correct, but you get the idea. Like they would assume that you're sitting far away and that you're calling them to spam. But if you have the phone number of their country, it's very different, right? You could be anybody in their network. You could be calling from, I don't know, the local authorities or a local business. It's like when they see the country code, that's their own country code, even though that's just a 2 or 3 digit number, it already creates more trust than if they don't recognize your country code, right? Very simply put. And so this is such a low-hanging fruit, guys. Like, make sure that you have a solution that allows you to call your prospects wherever they are, but you have the local phone number of that country. It makes a huge difference in your pickup rates. Very simple.
And the pickup rates leads to more conversations, and that leads to more bookings, right? All right, right now, I'll give my words to Yanchi for a short demo because we would like to transition from only talking about the skill to also show you a bit about the process and structure that can help you with cold calling. So Yanchi, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So it was a great bridge when it comes to local numbers. So let me, I cannot share while you are sharing, by the way.
Oh,
It says to me.
then I shall stop sharing.
Okay, so I'll just share my screen right here. I will be walking you through a simple way how you can set up your campaigns. I will do Salesforce as an example, but it works with also other CRMs. So Christian was talking about putting your list together, the accounts together at the beginning, right? So you do it in your CRM. You create a list in the Salesforce, for example. We call just an example one of these lists, doesn't matter. This one, for example, I have my contacts there. So I did my research. These are the ones I want to call. So what you do in CloudTalk then is that you go to our campaign session, campaign module in the CloudTalk where you can create a new campaign. And easily you just take the list and you map this to this campaign. Okay, so all the contacts from your Salesforce are going to be put into this campaign. And now you have your personalized campaign created. There is a bunch of other settings which you can do here. I'm not going to go super deep there, but I want to just show you one of them. And this is the outbound caller ID, right? So this is where we are saving you time, because Christian was mentioning better, local numbers, better pickup rate, right? You can choose the automatic outbound caller ID. So we always choose the number based on the prefix you are calling to. So you call your leads in the Germany, we choose your German number. You call the leads in the Spain, we choose the Spanish number from your account, right? So we automatically are actually switching these numbers for you. You don't have to do anything, just sit there and make those calls. So we take care of that for you. So now you have your list synced to CloudTalk. You have your phone numbers. You are ready to start calling. In the CloudTalk, then you open your campaign where you can start making those calls. You can see that there is some information about the clients. You can pull this also from the Salesforce, from the CRMs. You can show it while you are making the call to yourself. And then you just easily start the session. Now, what is important is there are two ways how to make these calls, okay? And this all depends on what type of campaign are you doing. Are you doing very specialized campaign where you have a high pickup rate? You can just call one by one, right? But if you want to increase your chances of a pickup call, you can also do parallel dialing. Parallel dialing is allowing you to trigger more calls at the same time, right? So if you have your pickup rate, which is only like, I don't know, 7%, you can make 3 calls at the same time. It's not a problem. You are going to get to the more conversations in the end. So you just start the session. As you can see here, we are dialing more people at the same time. One of them will answer. If the call is canceled, for example, or the number doesn't work, you see automatically from the list the next one is going to be dialed, and you can just pretty much be there and wait for the call to be answered, and then you do all the objection handling and pitch and everything that Christian was mentioning, right? I'm just going to exit this campaign and show you very quickly how it looks like when you actually get the campaign. When there is a pickup call. So this is just my test number. Let me see. There should be one contact. Yes, here we go. So now I start the session. So on the right side, you see what you have. You have all the call controls. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Because sometimes it just gets messed up. So on the right side, you have the call controls. You can drop a voicemail in case that you hit a voicemail. This can be also automated with our voicemail detection. But what is important, you can type here your note. You can mark the call with one of the dispositions, which all goes back to the Salesforce. So if you are getting back to this lead, in a few days, you exactly see what the call was about. We also send a summary there and everything. And what is important is that within the campaign, you pretty much mark it as with one of the dispositions to know if the call was successful, not successful, or maybe they told you, to call you to call them again in a certain time frame, so you can reschedule the call through the dialer directly. So now you have the call, you finished, everything goes back to the Salesforce. I'm just gonna go back here into the Salesforce. And again, I'm showing on the Salesforce, but the same way, Pipedrive, Zoho, HubSpot, whatever else you have there that you are using. But we take the call and we put all of the information back into the Salesforce, so you don't have to worry about any manual logging, nothing like that. You get the summary of the call, you get the sentiment of the call, the topics that you discuss, You can even open the detail of the call and in CloudTalk and see the full transcript, the analysis, sentiment analysis, talk to listen ratio. This is something super nice for everybody to keep track of. I'm sure Christian would agree with me that this is an important stat, and those who are talking for 80% of the call is usually not successful call. It should be other way around. You are there to ask good questions and listen. So this is something which helps you a lot to understand how well you are doing. And yeah, so this way goes everything to the Salesforce, and you can use this then to coach yourself, to coach your team, and to review their results. And one last thing before moving on, every campaign that you create also has the campaign specific results. What we were also discussing is that, like, it's for everybody something else can work, right? So this gives you the great way how to evaluate what is working and what is not, right? So you create the one campaign where, for example, you use a certain persona, you use certain location, opener, whatever it is. You can exactly see, okay, so I did here, 100 calls, I got conversion rate 26%. On a different campaign, it can be 15% or 50%, and you know the difference, and you know what's working and what is not working. So yeah, that's in a nutshell how does the whole flow works together with the CloudTalk when you want to make those cold calls. And maybe the last part, of course, I'm sure everybody knows in CloudTalk we have the best coverage on the market when it comes to phone numbers. So you can always, if you are starting a session to a new country, you have a new lead from a certain area, you can just request it directly from the dashboard. We have more than 160 countries covered there, so feel free to go ahead and test it out. Back to you, Anna.
Thank you, Angie, for such a thorough demo. And so I will start sharing my screen again, but before we move on, I wanted to ask Omar if you maybe have anything to share from your experience, if there were any tools that you were using back when you were cold calling. Would a tool like CloudTalk have been helpful back at the time?
Yeah, great question. And completely unbiasedly, yes, it would have, because I wish I had known that CloudTalk exists. I actually knew towards the end, right before I joined, that it was something that helps facilitate those cold calls, especially that parallel dialer. That would have been like insane for us at that time. What we were doing was good old fashioned, like either click to dial or literally just dialing from our phones. Which, as everyone I'm sure can imagine or has experienced, is not ideal and not efficient. So yeah, I think that the biggest thing that would have been very helpful for us would have been the parallel dialer, that voicemail detection, specifically voicemail drop. That alleviate a lot of time of us leaving manual voice notes. And some of the other cool stuff that I wish we had back then also would be for incoming calls, like missed calls, the voice agents would have been great. To kind of know where to send those calls as well. But yeah, I mean, that's what initially comes to mind.
No, thanks for bringing that up. And also, I wanted to ask you, is there right now any question from the audience that you would take, or are we going to leave them for in a few minutes?
Yeah, I see one here. Yeah, so it says, when parallel dialing, it's a pretty good question. Maybe this for you too, Anchi, but when parallel dialing, what happens if prospects pick up the call simultaneously? And from my experience before Anchi shares is, the way the parallel dialer works is basically it dials with like a 1 to 2 second delay for the next call. So it gives the highest chance for the first person to pick up the call. And it's basically based on your specific pickup rate. So if you guys make 5 cold calls and or 10 cold calls and 2 pick up, or 1 picks up, that's 10%. You can then adjust it because it's up to 10 dials at a time. and you'd adjust it to your specific pickup rate to reduce the times that happens. Statistically speaking, it's very rare that two people will pick up at the exact same time, almost an impossibility. But in the case that it does, that's what would happen. One would drop; it would go to the nearest one that picked up the call.
Yeah, so
Correct.
just to build up on what you said, with the parallel dialer, yes, you call multiple people, as Omar said, you call the first one, second, and the third call, or more calls are triggered. When you are using this sort of dialers, there is always a chance that we have two people pick up at the roughly same time or something, right? But you need to look at the big picture, right? Because if you don't use the parallel dialer, you are wasting your time on sitting and listening to voicemails, not pickups, and stuff like that, right? So it might happen, like that you miss one call that would pick up, but you are getting another 3 or 4, which you wouldn't get to. So you are always playing a bit a numbers game there, but you need to. That's what we always say, like you need. Sometimes what we do is that you start calling with the standard dialer 1-to-1. We see the pickup rate, and based on that, you set up the parallel dialer to your highest chance. So there will be, like it might be that you lose some of the calls. By the way, those calls when somebody picks up, so those other calls are canceled. They will be called back again, but they are put to the back of the queue, so you don't call them like 3 times in 20 minutes. So they will be called back again. But in the end, you are looking in the big picture. How many connected calls are you able to do within a certain time frame? And that's where the value comes from.
Thank you both for jumping in. And let's move on to the last part of our webinar today, and that is the follow-up. So right now, let's say we are in a situation where we made like 50 dials. We got, I don't know, like 5 conversations, and we left a few, I don't know, like 10 voicemails, where we were asking people to call us back. And the callback handling can be quite tricky. So I wanted to ask you, Christian, what is your ideal process or like system that you have for handling callbacks?
It's a good question, because I remember very well just a few years ago when I was at Salesforce and I made a lot of calls that prospects call back after hours. And I'm missing those calls because I'm not in the office anymore. I don't have access to my telephony system anymore. So I think callbacks is actually now one of the best use cases for AI agents because you can literally have an agent take that call for you, understand like what is the request, and then make sure that that call either gets routed to somebody else on your team who can take that call live, or it takes that information into the CRM or into your system so that you can make a well-informed follow-up with the specific prospect so that none of the callbacks get lost. So yeah, I'm not always the most bullish person on AI, but I think this is one of those use cases that you cannot miss out on. It'll literally bring you more business.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that callbacks are also where many of the opportunities are getting lost and like many of your, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, because like as we established, right, there's this timing thing with cold calling. I do believe that if you do have access to a solution like this, now the voice message game is like a whole nother game, right? So I think you should definitely always drop voice notes. What I always like to do is like I like to drop a voice note and then point the prospect towards the other channels. So in my follow-ups, I then follow up via email, or perhaps I drop them a message on LinkedIn if we're connected. So I always try to point them towards that so that instead of maybe having to call me back, they can go check out the inbox or they can check out LinkedIn and then see my messaging there. So that's also an effective way to leverage the multi-channel. But yeah, if they do call back after your voice message or just after having seen, your number, um, that's literally now almost like an inbound lead that you created because you can now call them again or you can follow up again, and you have the right to do so because they came back, right? So
Yeah, exactly. And before we move on and we talk a little bit more about AI voice agents, I still wanted to ask you about more of a process for organizing call notes, and also the follow-up. So how do you advise AEs, especially to organize the notes and also the follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit unique to everybody and sort of the tech stack that they have access to. I always think taking notes directly in the CRM makes the most sense, because then you don't have to spend extra time copy and pasting your notes from somewhere else, right? So I really liked how Jan was showing, like, taking the notes directly in Salesforce or directly in HubSpot, whatever it is that you're using. So taking your notes there, but also make sure that you work with tasks, right? So most CRMs have a task functionality. Without follow-up tasks, you will forget, right? That's inevitable. So for every call that you make, set yourself a follow-up task to follow up with this person, either phone again or on a different channel, right? So using follow-up tasks and like taking notes direct in the CRM is absolute clutch. And then the last thing I'll say, I'm a big fan of what's the opposite of multitasking, single tasking, right? So when you do have a cold call block for an hour or an hour and a half, you should do the same for your email. You should do the same for your LinkedIn, where you literally spend that entire time only in that channel and like work those tasks that are in that channel, right? Don't try to like switch between phone, LinkedIn, email, Slack. Chances are you're gonna get distracted and you're gonna start doing something else. Like, try to stay single focused and single task, one task at a time.
It makes sense. And also I'm a person like you. I cannot multitask and I hate to do it when I have to do it. All right, right now we would actually take, I think, 5 minutes to show you how AI voice agents can also bring you value when it comes to handling callbacks. So I would give again space to Yanchi.
Thank you. I think you need to stop sharing again.
Yes.
There you go. Okay, so
And right
next
after
one.
this, we will take the questions that are in Q&A. So make sure to stay.
All right, perfect. So voice agents, right? So what is a great thing about them is they can work whenever you are not working, right? So right now it's super easy that everybody can have like their personal assistant who is handling, your business while you do other things, and it can be during the day, it can be after hours, it can be whenever fits you. So I will stick to the use case that that we were talking about regarding the callback. So simple way, for example, how to make sure that no call goes unanswered for your on your numbers and on your account. So when we are in the CloudTalk, we have the voice agent section where you can create multiple voice agents for different like a type of traffic, type of use cases, and everything. It's very simple. The most important thing right now is the prompt for the voice agent. So this is the brain of the voice agent. You pretty much tell the voice agent exactly what it should do. Okay, so here I have, the identities of my personal assistant. It's called Lara. It's a friendly assistant to Anna, and it's taking care of the calls while she's not available. Okay, so you are now filled with all the knowledge and everything, so you can also give this to the AI. You can tell there are two ways. You can either tell exactly what the AI should tell, or you just give it you just give the voice agent task what it should do, and it's gonna come to it in their own way. Depends on how strict you want to be. So in this case, the call comes in, right? We inform the caller that Anna is not available right now, but she was reaching out to you regarding, and you can already put a relevant campaign, topic, relevant information there for the voice agent to mention on the call. So she called you recently regarding, I don't know, like speeding up the onboarding of your SDRs by 30%. Wanted to connect. Right now she's doing something else or she's not available. and you can then take the voice agent. You can make the voice agent to take the callback for you. So it's gonna arrange a time with you, and then just sends it either directly to your calendar, or it puts it back into the Salesforce or the CRM as it was shown before, and it's super simple. What is also a great thing, you can make the voice agent multilingual, so it can speak also more languages, not just the English, but also you can see there are a lot of options that you can have. All the major languages are there. You can choose from more than 8,000 voices, so whatever works the best for you, which one you like the best, and that's pretty much it, So another important thing then, how to apply it on the call. So this is my phone number, for example, that I use for my reach out in the US. If somebody calls to me, I always want the call to be first connected with me. If I'm available, I still, of course, want to take the call. As Chris said, these are like inbound leads for you now. So if I'm available, I need to take them, right? So it starts ringing on my phone, on my CloudTalk application. But if I'm not available, it automatically goes to this voice agent. Okay, so it's like a second step. It's a fallback, and it allows you to capture those leads if you are not available at the moment. So all of this you can have up and ready and set up literally in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes, and you can again gain a bit more from your callbacks, so you don't miss out on the leads. And how does it all sound? Like that's definitely something we want to show you. So I believe, Anna, you have an example when you were chatting with the voice agent this morning, so you can share that.
Yes, I do have that ready. However, I just got a message from Christian that we have last 5 minutes with him, and that's why I would like to now take one or two, or I hope three, let's see, questions that we have, and I will only show the video afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
Omar, is there a question, because you were monitoring the Q&A, that you would prioritize at the moment?
Yeah, I see a question here. Basically, I think one's for Angie, one's for Chris. Where do you send the video DMs from? Is there any desktop option? And can't find this in Condon/Walaxy.
So you can send videos to your prospects via LinkedIn DMs, via the LinkedIn mobile app. And the way I do this is I simply record them on my iPhone. It also works for Android. You simply record them and add them to the camera roll on your phone. And then you can upload them straight to the LinkedIn mobile app, just like you would send them a text message or a voice message. You can actually send them a video as well. Yeah, very simple. No third-party tools required. Maybe to add, this is really effective because a lot of executives are trained to never click on external links, which is why it's difficult to do video prospecting via third-party tools. With LinkedIn, they literally get like a little thumbnail of the video and they can click on it and it'll play inside of LinkedIn. So no IT security concerns there.
Thank you, Christian. And Omar, is it okay if we will take the question that is about strategy for working with gatekeepers while Christian is still here?
Correct.
We did not take that question, right? Before.
Nope, we didn't.
All right, Christian, then there is one more question while we have you here, the last one. What is your strategy for working with gatekeepers on cold calls so they become allies rather than obstacles?
I understand, yeah. That's interesting. I find that gatekeepers, I mean, back in the day, it was absolutely like part of the game, right? These days, yeah, I find that at least for me, I typically, if I don't find a direct number to the person, I will try the other channels. So, for example, LinkedIn and email. But look, guys, I find that with gatekeepers, it's much less what you say and much more how you say it. So I think you have to subconsciously sound like a customer, basically, right? Like you're either a customer or a business partner, right? And so what a lot of salespeople do is when they call a gatekeeper, it's like, yeah, this is Christian from the Quota League. I was trying to reach Omar. We've never spoken in the past, but we connected on LinkedIn. And then what happens is that the gatekeepers very quickly detect, oh yeah, salesperson, right? So when they detect salesperson, they put you in this box and then they try to get rid of you. And typically they tell you, yeah, send him an email. And we all know that this never works. But instead, it should be like, hi, this is Christian. I'm trying to reach Omar. Christian who? And you said, yeah, Christian Krause. And they're like, why are you trying to call Omar? I'm like, well, he like I think you should never lie. You should never say, oh, he expects my call or we already met before if that's not true. But like you want to be very gently persistent. And you don't want to give away too much information. Only give them the information if they ask. Like basically, you want to give them the feeling that, ooh, maybe this is an important call, like I'm messing something up, right? That's the approach that's typically worked for me in the past. I'm also curious how Omar does it. I'm not sure if you do a lot of gatekeeping. Um,
Yeah, no, that's kind of what you said there. It's making them building urgency around. At the end of the day, the gatekeeper wants to do a good job at gatekeeping, but they also want to do a good job at facilitating something that's meaningful and valuable, and they don't want to screw that up either. So leaning into what you said, Chris, in terms of making sure that they feel that this is an important call, that's what's going to drive value and get that to the finish line, which is you getting past that gatekeeper.
Thank you both for taking this question. Christian, I know we have a hard stop right now, so I would just like to thank you on behalf of CloudTalk for joining the webinar. It has been a great experience, and maybe I can say that for the last 1 or 2 questions that we still have here for you, we will follow up via email. So we will send this as a follow-up after the webinar, if that's okay. So your questions will be you will get response, just not right now.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Thank you for being here. And for anyone who has still a few minutes to stay, we will be taking the questions that are addressed to CloudTalk. Omar, which question was the one that you wanted to start with for CloudTalk?
There was one I can take with the contact details, just to make sure that we are on the same page with everybody. So CloudTalk, you need to pretty much have your contact details before using CloudTalk. So we don't do like a contact enrichment, like Zoom in for those like a similar tools like that. We just then work with those and help you get to your leads faster and in a more efficient way, but we are not doing like a contact enrichment, just to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's a very important point for cold calling. Thank you for clarifying that. All right, we have a question from Dennis. Where can we track callbacks and dashboard to see what numbers or leads were called back?
Yeah, so I can take that. So in the analytics, in the dashboard, you have a lot of ways how you can actually track this. So you can just see, for example, let me share the screen. Can I share? Yes, I can. So when you are in the CloudTalk analytics, you are able to easily just filter in your agent report or in the call log, just the inbound calls, and you exactly see, right? So I have, answered inbound calls, how many missed calls I have. You can exactly see when they are coming. So you have a great dashboard where you can see all of that.
Thank you, Yanchi, and let us know if this answered your question. And all right, then there is a question from Steven. And this is a good question because he is asking, what are current capabilities of using AI voice agents for outbound, so for cold calling? And yeah, this one is good to take, Yanchi.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we are. You can also do like an outbound calls with CloudTalk voice agent. Now you need to be, I would say, a bit careful with it and be very thoughtful about or put really like an effort into what kind of use case are you going to cover, because I think like the guys would agree with me that if you spend time, if you research your lead and you know this is a lead you definitely need to get to, and you have one chance maybe to do that, you are not going to give this lead to the voice agent, right? That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is maybe if somebody, if you have a website, you know, and somebody signs up on your website, so show some interest in your company, you can have voice agent call them immediately after they sign up and do a very quick, like a pre-qualification, you know, so just a quick scan to see if this is a relevant lead or not, right? So you need to pick your use cases very well. We do have outbound use cases. We see clients using it. We see that it's bringing a lot of value for them. But it's right now, it's not, I would say it's for you to get extra leads, extra traffic. It's not to substitute your work as an SDR or an AE. Okay, maybe there are some leads in the CRM that are marked as a bad lead, bad fit, and nobody wants to touch them. Let the voice agent call them, and maybe he can get like a one or two out of them, you know. But it's like nobody is spending time on it, you know. Like you don't want your best AEs to call these leads, but the voice agent can call them, right? So this is the whole topic of the voice agent and outbound. You need to pick very wise your battles.
Exactly, because ultimately AI voice agents are a technology and we need to know when to use it and when to not use it. All right, guys, we are quite over time. Thank you for staying with us. We can still wait for maybe one last question if there is anyone who wants to either speak up or send it in the Zoom chat. I think I'll wait for one more minute and then we'll call it a day. Janči, how do you feel? How was this experience for you?
No, I think it was great. It was great. Good questions, you know, like engaged people. So I like that.
Great.
Looking forward for the next one.
We have someone who wants to ask live. So Ignacio, it will be for you. You should be unmuted right now, but we don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So, I was actually wondering, out of curiosity, you guys that are, kind of in that transformation that is currently happening in sales with voice agents. So I was wondering how the future looks like from your perspective. Especially, considering that perhaps there's going to be a time in which these sales are made from agent to agent. Maybe not even voice agents. Maybe they're just going to be like programmatic agents. I don't know. But how do you envision that that future? Would be my question, just to kind of finish off and close the loop. Yeah. Thanks.
That's a good question, and I think, Ignacio, everybody who says something right now is like, it can, like, nobody knows really, right? So everybody can have their opinion. It might be right, it might be wrong, but the time will tell. I can tell you what I think, and I think where we are also going a bit as a company is that we still think that sales is a game where you work a lot with the trust, and voice agents are a great thing. It can help you, do a lot of things, but there still needs to be that human touch to create that trust when it comes to sales. So what we are thinking, or what also I think, is that for some time at least, the humans and the AI will live, together. It will complement each other and help each other out. But there will be still, like humans who are using AI exactly to handle some simple tasks, to get to the leads that they are not able to get to answer their calls and stuff like that. But a lot of the and the humans will pretty much focus on the value on the conversation where they add the value, where they need to create the trust, create and nurture the relationship, and these kind of conversations. So that's, I think, where we are, and I think CloudTalk is very unique in that, where you can combine, tools for the human agents together with the voice agents, right? And that's where I believe we are going, at least for the next, maybe like a few years, but like after that, who knows what's gonna happen, right? We will have to adapt, but I think like for the near future, like for the next years, this is how it's gonna look like.
Yeah, makes sense. I just okay, sorry, can you hear me right now or not?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, I think so too. However, I come from the creative industry, from the voiceover industry. Actually, what's one of my most recent companies, and actually we kind of thought the same. Like there's no way that AI is gonna kind of run over this, because voiceovers still need a human touch. It's I think something similar is happening in cinema, movies, and videos. And I don't know. I don't think it would be that bad. I think that if it's gonna happen, we just have to be ready for it. So I think that from in these industries, people have been talking that, oh no, it's going to happen in 5, 10 years, 20, 30. In matter of 1-2 years, everything's changed so much there. So yeah, but let's see how that goes. Yeah.
It's very possible I might be wrong, also. So like, we'll see. But I think like we are at an exciting moment in the history, and we just have to see how it's gonna unfold. But yeah, I totally get you, and we'll see. We'll see in the end.
Yeah. Anyhow, thank you very much. It was really, really interesting and really useful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for asking, Ignacio. And I think this was a great question to finish the webinar for today. Thank you everyone who has stayed until now. As I already mentioned, we will follow up on a few questions together with the recording and then let's say, I think tomorrow. But we really hope this session was helpful and that you learned a lot, just like we did. Janči, thank you for the demos and for joining.
Thank you, everybody, for staying until now.
Yes.
See you next time.
Have a great evening and see you next time. Exactly.